Hi, my name's John Cowan, and welcome to this brief webinar hosted by Learning Links Childcare on how to help your kids get along with each other. If your kids fight and yell and bicker with each other, then congratulations, it sounds like you've got normal children. It's very, very common. It seems to be something that's wired into kids to compete with each other and to try and get ahead of each other. So it might be normal, but it's also very unpleasant. It's rated as the most unpleasant aspect of parenting by those parents that have more than one child anyway. That, of course, is the ideal solution to sibling rivalry, and that is just to have one child. But for many of us, it's too late. So, sibling rivalry, it's unpleasant. It's also sad to think that these two kids, or three kids or more, that could be the best of mates and be entertainment for each other and support for each other, aren't getting on. Wouldn't it be sad if that carried on into life? And I'm sure we all know instances where siblings continue to dislike each other into adult life. That's desperately sad. So I am glad that there are things we can do as parents that can make life a bit easier at home by reducing sibling rivalry. It might help your kids to like each other a bit better. One valuable insight about sibling rivalry is they could be fighting over you. No, they're not. They're fighting over who gets in the front seat. They're fighting over who gets to go through a door first. They're fighting over who gets to play with a teddy bear they found in the garage that nobody has been interested in for 7 years. They're fighting over anything. But honestly, they could well be fighting over you. In fact, you may have wondered why, when you drop your kids off to a friend's place and you pick them up sometime later and they say, oh, your children have been little angels. And you go, no, they're not. They're awful. And they have been well behaved for that other caregiver. Why? Because you weren't there. What am I meaning? They're fighting over your time and attention. You are the most important thing in their life, and you are worth fighting over. You're a scarce resource, and they're going to make sure that they get their slice. One of the big things for all kids is, am I noticed? Am I listened to? Do I matter? And so the more that you can reassure kids that you are there for them, that you've got time for them, that they matter to you, you're going to be removing a lot of the fuel for sibling rivalry. So make sure your kids know that their opinions count, that you ask questions. What do you think about this? What's your idea about that? When kids know that someone understands me, when you give them choice in their world by letting them have some control, it really does remove a lot of the steam. So choices and scheduled time with each child is the best start to reducing sibling rivalry. Could I just say there's no guarantees on any of this. These are just tips that I know have worked in my family, work in many families, but if sibling rivalry is ingrained in their personality, it's going to take a long time to remove, and you may not remove it entirely. But let's start with giving them some choice in their world and some scheduled time with you, and I'm sure that things will improve. No favorites. If you're really wanting to amp up the sibling rivalry, if you're really wanting to fuel up the debate and argument between children, let them believe that you have a favorite. Now, honestly, if you're a human being, you have a preferred type of car, you have a preferred flavor of ice cream, you have a favorite type of music, and if you really think about it, one of those kids is a little bit more easy to get along with. One of those kids is just a bit more compliant, a bit more cuddly. Can I just say, stop it right there. Don't even admit to yourself that you've got a favorite, and certainly never let them know that you've got a favorite. Nothing is as painful or as hard to carry on into life as believing that you are the less loved child. Now, sometimes family life can get very complex. If you're in a blending family and you have your biological children, you might have your partner's children, you might have children from this new relationship, And sometimes the biological tugs in your heart are stronger and more natural to your own children. Or maybe you're trying to consciously become build a good relationship with your partner's children. So one of the things that can happen is that parents become so intent on being kind and welcoming to their partner's children that their own biological children can feel that you're not giving them enough time. So don't withdraw from your own child in favor of your stepchildren. Just always remember to be the loving parent to all the kids in your care. Resist the very natural human tendency to compare one child with another. This makes a child feel criticized. It never seems to come across as a constructive criticism, always hurtful criticism. And also, you might be sowing some sort of self-fulfilling prophecies into a child when you're saying, oh, he's the shyer one, he's less confident. Yes, you're going to be right. They will be less confident. They'll live up to those words that you're speaking about them. But, when you're saying, oh, she's better at music, he's better at sport, he's good at English, but she isn't. These types of things can really sort of just sow, again, that idea that I am the less loved child. Does that mean if you've got a child that's perhaps really, really able at academic things, really talented at schoolwork, but another child who struggles, does that mean you never make a fuss over the achievements of the child who's gifted academically? No, you do. You do honour them at meal times. You say nice things about them. You compliment them on the prizes that they've won or the certificates that they've earned. And yes, you do make a fuss about them, but you also work hard to discover the things that your other children are achieving at and making progress in. Because I honestly believe that every child, even if your child's got learning disabilities, every child will have some talent and ability that, when discovered, will allow them to feel that they are honoured and excellent about something. It might be on the sports field, it might be in music, it might be online, it might be gaming, it might be just the ability to make friends. But I believe that all of them will have something that you can praise. So yes, you do praise the achievements of the academically gifted child, but you also find ways of being able to praise all of your children. Treat your children fairly, but that doesn't necessarily mean treating them equally. You don't say to your child, I've just spent 7.5 minutes with your sister, so now I'm going to spend 7.5 minutes with you. And or I've given 11 grapes to your brother, and here's 11 grapes for you. Instead, let them know that you're giving them enough, that you're giving things to them like your time according to their need, according to their age and their maturity. If you've got a new baby or a child with special needs, you know that you can't divide your time and energy evenly. Some children at certain stages just require more time. Well, acknowledge that to your child. Hey, thank you for being so kind while I'm nursing the baby and looking after yourself. But when the baby's asleep, I want you to go and find a book, and I'll have a cup of tea, and then you can read me a story. So let them know that even though you're not giving equal time to each child, every child is getting enough time. And so some parents worry about unequal rules for their children. But it's not fair for a 10-year-old to have the same rules that a 7-year-old has. It's not fair that a 13-year-old has to have the same bedtime as their 6-year-old sibling. And so you give according to need and maturity when it comes to things like food and bedtimes and pocket money. Sometimes sibling rivalry is more than just bickering between siblings of a similar age and size. Sometimes there is a real power imbalance, and it verges on bullying. So do take care that the bigger kids aren't being too rough and aggressive with the little kids. Also take care that the verbally competent ones aren't slicing and dicing their siblings. Sometimes a younger kid can be very, very clever with their mouth and can be very, very rude and cutting. So just watch out for that as well. Also, it's not uncommon if you've got a family with, say, 3 or more kids, for 2 of them to gang up against one of them or to make one of them feel left out. So that's just something to watch out. I know there's a lot to be said for letting kids to work things out on their own. You don't have to fix every problem for your children, but sometimes just letting them work things out on their own means that might is right, and the bigger ones might end up dominating the less powerful ones. So monitor that. Keep an eye on that. One of the best ways of defueling sibling rivalry is to ensure every child gets some time alone with you. And one of the best ways of doing that is up on the calendar, they can see that coming up is a mum date or a dad date. And these don't have to be all that frequent, perhaps once or twice a month. And you can rotate them around. This week, Dad will be taking out Susie. Next week, I'll be taking out another child. And so it rotates around. Also, make sure on the calendar that they can see that there are mum and dad dates where the 2 of you go out as a couple and a babysitter looks after them. But seeing that that is up there on the wall, even if they don't understand about calendars and dates all that much, it means that they know that their turn is coming, and they don't have to bicker and fight to get that attention. They know that they're coming up this Saturday morning, you're going out for breakfast with mum, and so you're going to get that one-on-one time. It really, really does help. Same with bedtimes. If you can manage it, having separate beds and separate bedtimes means that you can spend a little bit of time with each child. It means you miss an awful lot of TV over the course of an evening if you've got quite a few kids, but it's a lovely time, it's special time, it doesn't last forever. And as I'm saying that, I'm looking back on my life as a parent of younger children and thinking, oh, there was a last time I did that, and I now miss it. I'm looking forward to doing it again with grandchildren. A great antidote to sibling rivalry is when your kids believe they belong to a team, when that family matters, and you're using little aphorisms and phrases like blood is thicker than water, we're a team, we look out for each other, we stick up for each other, and so you build this idea of what a family means. Your kids, probably from toddler age on, understood about brand names. When was the first time that your kids became aware of McDonald's or some other brand? Well, let them know that they've got a brand. It's the Smiths, it's the Browns, it's the Cowans, whatever your family name is. That is your brand, your family, and that in this family we do things in a special way. In fact, a lovely term that you can use often with your kids is in our family we. In our family we do chores together. In our family we let guests go first. In our family we always treat pets kindly. And it's a lovely way to introduce rules and chores and all sorts of things, and it lets them know that there is something bigger than them, even bigger than mum and dad. It's the family, and it's got a culture, and it's got a traditions, and it's got manners and kindness about it. And it's lovely when kids really come to believe that this matters to them. You hear sometimes of, a brother that'll stick up for their sister in the playground, and they don't even like their sister, but they really believe in this idea of family. And that helps you carry on through even times when they're not liking each other very much, they're still committed to each other. So as you can, build this concept of team. Space is a great way to cope with sibling rivalry, giving kids time away from each other, time out of each other's hair, a place where they can retreat, where they can hide, where they're not going to be annoyed by little or bigger brothers and sisters. Even in vehicles, we loved the time that we had quite a big van and we could put kids in each corner out of reach of each other, and they seem to travel a lot more happily. So honestly, kids seem to thrive on having a little bit of room and a bit of space, but also special places where they can keep their special stuff. And it is sacred. Other brothers and sisters aren't allowed to touch their stuff when it's in their special space. This seems to help kids have a sense of identity and be able to create boundaries between them and their brothers and sisters. An extension of this idea, an extension is that not everything has to be shared. The idea of sharing and property is a complex issue. Don't be surprised if your kids take many, many years to get the hang of this. And sharing in particular is a particularly tricky concept. Mum and Dad said this toy is mine, but now they're telling me that I have to let my brother use it. It's an odd thing. But anyhow, one way to help them get a grip with the idea of sharing is let them know that some toys are theirs, some books and other possessions are theirs, and they don't have to share it if they don't want to. But other toys are family toys, and everybody can use them or take turns with them. And so this is something that can help reduce sibling rivalry when kids know that my property rights are respected. I don't have to fight to defend my stuff because this is the rule in the family, and mum and dad are going to police this for me. So some things they share, but some things they don't have to share. It's theirs, and theirs exclusively if they wish. This is an old rule, but it's fun, and it's also enshrines a few ideas. If you're having a cake and you know your kids are going to fight over who gets the biggest piece, have one child cut, and then one child and the other child can then choose. And this seems to work in all sorts of different contexts. One cuts, the other chooses. Kids like the idea that it's an attempt to make life fair in your family. Use a timer. And we use this all the time for things like turns on video games, turns on the trampoline, anything we have to take turns. An old-fashioned timer works really well. In fact, the ones that worked really well with our family were the old-fashioned clockwork countdown timers. You know, the ones that go tick 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 ring. They work really, really well. But you can use timers on your watch or on the stove or whatever, or on your phone, just to work out fair times on all sorts of things, on games, on the swing, on the trampoline, whatever. This is a concept that worked very well in our family, and I know it's worked well in others as well, where if you have several kids, you rotate privileges and responsibilities amongst them, and that perhaps each week you would have a leader of the week. Now, the leader gets to make decisions like which channel to watch on TV, what flavour ice cream to get out of the fridge. They get the right to ride in the front seat of the car. They make all those little decisions that don't really matter to you anyway. Of course they don't overrule you. Their authority is very limited, but they do have the ability to make some choices, and the other kids have to defer to them. But they also know that next week their sibling is going to be the leader of the week, and so if they've been a bit of a tyrant, what goes around comes around. And this worked so well. We also used it to rotate chores, and we had a wheel on the wall that rotated around at a certain time on a certain day each week, and kids knew who was the leader and who had what chores to do. It just gives a sense of fairness in the family. It's also quite a bit of fun. You don't have to solve every problem. Family life is a laboratory. And so the skills they'll learn sorting out and problem solving and sharing and coming to accommodations and compromises, the things that you learn in family might set you up to handle those sorts of things in life as well. But even though you're not sorting everything out for them, you are establishing the ground rules. You can't use violence. You have to use kind words. You have to take turns. And you monitor the fairness just to make sure, again, that the more competent and older or bigger kids aren't dominating the little ones, or the little ones aren't ganging up on the big ones. So you're monitoring the fairness. And of course, you're very, very cautious that there's no bullying going on in the family. So as much as they can, you say, I'd like you to sort this out yourselves. And maybe you might have to be the adjudicator. Maybe you might have to be the judge and listen to their cases, but they get good at being able to express what the problem is and making their request. I'm not saying it's going to work perfectly, but it can certainly be a step at learning how to problem solve with someone. I don't like to dump on parents, but honestly, this is an opportunity for you to be a great role model. How do they see you apologize and ask for forgiveness or give forgiveness to your children or to your partner? The way you treat them is the way that they will treat each other. And so if you're using a tone of voice which is harsh, rude, demanding, don't be surprised if you hear that tone of voice being echoed back to you. And so just be aware that your home is bugged. 2 cameras, 2 microphones per child. They're watching everything you do. And the way that you treat your adults, your siblings, your own parents, and the way that you treat them will be echoed in their modes of behavior as well. And so if you want to see kindness and politeness in your children, need I say more? Kindness and politeness should be the hallmark of your behavior as well. Thank you for listening to this. There's a lot that could be said about sibling rivalry, and you'll find lots and lots of resources online and on websites. If parenting's getting on top of you, don't let it fester. Do seek help from your doctor or from the Depression and Anxiety Helpline. It's always good to be able to share problems and get on top and get some help. It's a pleasure to share these ideas with you. If you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to contact me. Cheers.